actually happened to you.
I've got a few of those.
I'm sure you do. Okay, so we're going to start this. Are you ready, David? Okay, excellent.
Okay.
So, we're going to have to switch places.
Okay.
So we'll switch.
It's interesting, isn't
There's
it?
water if you need from down.
I'll have a little sip. Okay. I'll get it out of the way.
So first, I'd like you to say your name and spell it.
Okay. My name is Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D. First name Morris, M-A-U-R-I-C-E. Last name Mulcahy, it's Irish, M-U-L-C-A-H-Y.
Okay, and we're doing this in August of 2014. So, first thing I would like you to tell me is, when did you come to Nevada? What year? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, it was in 1951, and we were sent down from Port Townsend for Fort Flagler, up in the Sound, Puget Sound. Fort Flagler was put up years ago in the First World War as a coastal defense. Fort Flagler sticks out. It's an island across from Port Townsend, and Fort Flagler was set up with a coastal defense with batteries, mortars put in at that time, as well as Fort Casey, which is across the Sound. If you're familiar at all with Washington State and the Sound, Straits of Juan de Fuca run up through there. Fort Casey is over on Whidbey Island. So if there was any threat from the sea, which they anticipated, that never happened, of course, they'd have these mortars that could bring fire down on these invading ships. These were large concrete emplacements, and they were all tied together with lines, communication lines, not like they have today. It was all hardwire.
So, were you stationed there?
I was stationed there. That was Fort Flagler was deactivated after after the Second World War, reactivated for the Korean War. So we were the first bunch that went in there to open up the barracks and get things going again, you know. Some of the uniforms that we wore, mine in particular, was the Second World War jackets they issued to us at Fort Lewis. You know, just handed your clothes across the counter. We later got regular Army uniforms that we were supposed to have to start with.
Were you drafted into the Army?
I was drafted. My serial number is still U.S., meaning you were drafted, 56112266. I couldn't hardly not remember that.
And what year were you drafted?
It would have been in probably December or January. I was also in the Navy Reserve for 3.5 years. And I took active cruises. I had my uniform. I signed up for the Navy. They wanted to send us out to the Great Lakes, and that was full. Kids trying to avoid Korea were going into getting out of, you know, the draft situation. They signed it. Then they said they would send us to San Diego. That didn't happen. In the meantime, I got my draft notice. Okay, I took it down to where I was supposed to take it. The petty officer handed it to him. What am I supposed to do with this? And he said, no problem. He gave his chair a push. He didn't get up. Went to the wall, pushed open his cabinet, pulled the drawer out, got my orders. There were about my papers, threw it in the waste paper basket, and says, you're in the Army.
So you didn't have a choice. You just
Well, I could have. I was already had my uniform. I was officially in the Navy. Okay, I could have, but that didn't make any difference to me. I'm just a kid, you know.
How old were you?
I was 18. And whether I went in the Army or the Navy made no difference. I had my kind of my fill of the Navy anyhow, although I did enjoy. I was on the USS Lofberg. It was a destroyer. It's probably long gone now. The first cruise went up into Alaska, out the Aleutian Islands. I enjoyed that very much. I enjoyed the sea. The second cruise on the USS Thompson. It was a cruiser that took us down the coast to San Francisco. And as a young kid, I looked up at the Golden Gate Bridge going underneath, and I was very thrilled with all this. But anyhow, I went in the Army, drafted, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved the Army.
What were you assigned to do, and what was the number of your unit?
The number of the unit, what they called us the 369th EASR, meaning Engineer Assault Support Regiment. We were amphibious. We were not infantry. We were trained much like the Marine Corps, come ashore. But our main job, if we had served actively, I never did go to Korea. I asked to go to Korea and they didn't want me over there. And we would have an assault. We would be on those M-boats that were coming on shore and the gates come down. And we would establish a beachhead. And we would secure a beachhead. We were the engineers. We would take care of the logistics of the roads and the bridges and everything that needed to be done to support the people that knew how to fight. You know what I'm saying? The Marines and the infantry. They're trained to kill people. We weren't necessarily trained to kill people. You know, we knew how to shoot a rifle, but we never had the same training.
So you're in the Army, and you're sent out here to Nevada in 1951.
Yes.
And did you come into Las Vegas, and how did you get here?
Well, they sent us down we were all loaded onto a train at the King Street Station in Seattle. Our entire battalion came down. They sent us on a train. We were all uniformed, all our bags, everything, and away we went down the track at Las Vegas. And there was supposed to be no drinking on this train because we're in the Army, but everybody had a bottle in their bag, you know. So first thing I know, here comes the officers and the MPs coming from car to car collecting all this booze and literally dumping it out. It was heartbreaking to see all this, you know.
How long was the journey?
It took us, it seemed like it took us a full day. I think we were like going all night on this train. The train would go and it would stop and then it would go again, and it took like forever to get down here.
So did you come into downtown Las Vegas?
We came into downtown Las Vegas. We got off of the train at the old station in Old Town there. They loaded us onto Army trucks and they took us out, I think it's 65 miles out to where the site is at. And we established, we had our tents, we had everything. We set up latrines, we set up a shower head, mess hall, living quarters, and it's a 10-man tent we all slept in, of course. And then that was the base, that was the 369th. Then when the other troops would come in, there were hundreds, sometimes 1,000 of them, would arrive. They would all be billeted in tents. They'd all have to have a place to sleep and to shower, and you had to get fed. And then they were prepared to get back on trucks for the next bomb. And they would haul them up the same road we would go up. But they would go down from Newsman's Rock. I would stay there because that was my station. I was part of the decontamination unit. And I'd watch this row after row after row of trucks go down this hill, disappear into the desert, and then eventually they'd all, like little mice, they'd disappear into the ground. The trenches are already there in preparation for the bomb, you see.
So how many years were you there?
We were there probably, not years. I think I was there probably, I'd say close to maybe 6 to 7 months. I was there long enough, you would have to check your calendar to see 8 atomic bombs go off.
You bet. Your turn.
I brought a few things up with me that you might want to look at, maybe even at the end. Even photographs of desert rock.
Okay. I hope I can see because my eyes are bad.
If that looks familiar to you.
I wish you had a magnifier that I could, but you don't.
Sure don't.
Of course, I'm looking, one of these tents here probably be the one that I was in.
I would assume you would have been closest to the
We were closer to the main road itself,
main road and the entrance
in the entrance to the camp.
where that sign stood.
Yes, I went through that sign many times. In fact, I can tell you a story about this sign and where it stood. It was guarded by military police. I had my wife down here then, and I was in Las Vegas, and I shouldn't have been, all right. But I knew how to get out of the camp without being seen, of course, because we built the camp. I mean, we knew the back roads and all that. So
you sneak
I
out.
went around this sign in order to get in town to be with my wife, you see. I was a bad boy, but I did it.
Did they ever catch you?
No, never. But anyhow, it came close. I came back to camp late. I was supposed to be at camp, and as I approached the road you come up, make my left turn to go down and past this check station, the Marines were there. Marines came, I had to stop, of course, and he came right to the window. And I'm in my uniform, and out to my left, I could see the whole battalion out for inspection. They had some big shot in from someplace, wanted to look at everybody. And I should have been down there, you see, waiting for someone to look at me. And I wasn't. I was in this 1947 Chevrolet, and I was off base without a pass. So, at any rate, the MP come to the window. Then he said to me, "What's your name?" You know. I said, "My name is Mulcahy, Rich Mulcahy." And he stood back and he said, "You don't have any family in Martinez, California, do you?" And right then and there I knew I was off the hook. I said, "Yeah, I have my cousin Jimmy," and I went on to tell him. "Oh my God," he said, "we went to school together." He said, "I know you're not supposed to be here, and I never seen you." He said, "Would you get the hell out of away from get back?" So I went through here, went back down, parked my car, and in my uniform, I fell right back into where I was supposed to be. And I was just like everybody else, you see. Nobody knew the difference.
Now, how many times did you sneak off?
Oh, every weekend. If you had a pretty wife like I did, you'd been gone too. So
Was your wife renting a house here, or was she down?
we rented. She came down, and she wasn't supposed to be. She graduated from Lone Mountain College for Women, San Francisco, a very good college, and she was very much of a lady, a very smart, beautiful lady. You can tell by her daughter. And she was continuing her education after we got married in the Army. And so her dad sent her back to San Francisco to finishing school. I don't know what she needed to finish. She looked polished to me, you know, and good. But so I'm down here, in station out here. She gets in her car and she drives down. She's lonesome. She wants to be with me, but she don't tell anybody anything. Don't tell her parents, don't tell anybody. Well, of course, her dad, your grandpa, was absolutely beside himself what happened to his daughter until she finally called him, "Well, Daddy, I'm down with Richie in Las Vegas." And then, of course, I could never remember her father ever getting angry with her. "Okay, honey, as long as we know where you're at," you know. So that part worked out good. And then she right away got a job at Camp Mercury, which was down the road, see, because she was very good with typing and very smart with anything, you know. So like I say, I would leave the camp after my day was done, and I would get behind this guy, and she would pick me up on the highway, and away we'd go.
So when you came to Vegas, where did you stay?
It was you would go past the old strip, past the Flamingo. I can tell you a story about that too if you'd like to hear it. Past the Flamingo, another couple of blocks, and make a left turn. There was really nothing out there then, but there were some nice motels out on that area. And we rented a motel in behind a nice wall that had a swimming pool. We were quite set up, you know. It was quite nice. It was like a honeymoon almost, you know. And then the guys that I worked with out here, as soon as they could get away, they'd get in town and they'd come to where we lived and they'd be in the pool all day, you know. We had a great time. But none of us were supposed to be away, you see, at the time.
So they didn't really give you leave to come out
No,
to Vegas?
no.
Because we have some photos of,
No.
you know, big signs, this casino welcomes the soldiers of Camp Desert Rock.
Yeah, well, this particular soldier and the guys I was closest with, we didn't have no welcome signs up for us because we were terrible looking soldiers to begin with. And the reason being is the tests they were performing out there, they were using all new clothes. And they were like sand all filled in the lay. They were made up to look like people, but what they did is they took these dummies stuffed with whatever. We're in rags. And literally, we've been down here long enough, we wore our clothes out. We're in rags. I didn't even have a cuff on my shirt. It was just a terrible looking bunch. But they used all these clothes to put on these dummies, which they put out and blew the crap out of them with the atomic bomb, see, so they could register the effect of the radiation on the material, see. So when we marched into the Flamingo Hotel one night, there was 5 of us. We borrowed a Jeep from the motor pool. We borrowed it. There was no, and we went around where I know how to get around this guy. And we drove into Las Vegas, had a little outing, you know. We needed to get away for a little bit. And my dad told me if I go into Flamingo Hotel, ask for so-and-so, a friend of his. And I did. We marched in. Of course, we're stopped right there because we're like bums, you know. We're just terrible looking. The Jeep was all full of everything, mostly beer cans. But you probably don't know this. So it's a big shot at the door. Of course, they stop you. I told him, I said, well, I'm here. And I asked for this guy's name. I forget, his name was Sellers or something. I said, is there so-and-so here? And he said, why do you want him? Why do you need this man? I said, well, my dad told me to ask for him if I showed up here. And he said, one snap of the finger, you know, and somebody came running, and he whispered in his ear, and he went running, and pretty soon this fella come out. And he said, you're Teddy Mulcahy's son from Butte? And I said, I am. He says, well, get in here. And he told these guys, give these kids anything they want, make sure they're fed, and put some money in their pocket.
Really?
Yes. We were treated royally. So after our outing, after our eating, after our drinking, now it's late, very late at night when we have to have reveille in the morning. So we drive back to Camp Desert Rock, and we don't use the highway. We use the deserts, so we're not detected, of course. And we put the Jeep back in the motor pool. This is the good part of the story. This is really good. I love this part. We all fell out the next day, and we were all accounted for until we heard this roar from the motor pool. The motor pool officer was kind of he was a second lieutenant, and he was really kind of a weird, jerky guy anyhow, you know. He was all Army and all everything, knew everything. And when he took a look at his Jeep, it was a new Jeep. The tires were falling off of it. They were in rags. It was full of beer cans. You could have heard him holler clear to town. Well, what he done is he called in the FBI and everything. You know, he got really nervous about all this. And he put this yellow tape all the way around this Jeep. The Jeep is sitting out there all by itself. And every time I'd walk by, I'd laugh my ass off at this.
Did he ever figure it out?
Never did catch anybody.
Did he think it was spies?
Oh, it was so funny. Do you see any humor in this at all?
Okay,
So anyhow, go on with your question.
so outside of beer drinking and running the beer hall,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the beer hall.
Well, the beer hall was a nice beer hall. It was a large beer hall because, you know, they run so many military through from all branches of the service, you know. They all came through to participate in this atomic bomb. And at the end of their day, they all had to have a beer. And this was 2% beer. It wasn't heavy alcohol. They wouldn't let us. We came in town to some big warehouse here in an Army truck and filled it up with case after case after case of beer. Probably 1,000 cases of beer. I don't know. There's a lot of people out there. And of course, then they came and they had their beer. Of course, this little tent, one of these that I stayed in, underneath my bunk, I had 5 cases of beer, see? Because we were in the beer hall.
So you had the extra under your bed. So now they also had a cafeteria for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the cafeteria.
The cafeteria was regular field, Army field, kitchen. These kitchens are all portable, like if you were in combat and you went away out fighting a war someplace, and soldiers have to eat too, and they would set this all this kitchen up. It'd come out of trucks and it was all put together. It was all stainless steel, and it was a regular line, a kitchen line, and they got it all fired up, and then the food came out of places that was frozen. Big trucks, everything was there for what they needed to feed, and the quantity was there. Mm-hmm. If they expected 1,000 Air Force people down there to march underneath this bomb as it blew up, they'd have the food there to feed them. So logistically, somebody really had to do a lot of work in order to get the supplies coming, you know.
So was the food any good?
Oh, nobody complained about the food. When you're in the Army, you eat what they give you. Some food is better than others. But we had sea rations too. They issued us all, and these are all Second World War sea rations. Still, they expect you to eat it, you know. So.
You were there for Operation Ranger. That would have been the name of it.
Okay.
And the test would have been Able, Baker, Easy, Baker 2, Fox. And they were in January and February of 1951.
That's right.
And then the next set wouldn't have been till October. Were you there?
We were probably out of there then.
Okay, so that would have been Operation Buster.
Yes, like I say, I witnessed 8 atomic bombs.
Okay.
And so I don't know exactly how the arithmetic works out on those numbers, but.
Where were you located at?
At all 8 blasts, I was on Newsman's Rock. That was my
So
station.
News Knob is what they called it later on.
What do they call it?
News Knob?
Okay, yeah.
Kind of up.
Well, it's still there, I'm sure. It's a rock promenade that stuck out.
Yeah.
And our station was just to the east of that, right adjacent to it. I could have walked 40 feet and I'd have been talking to these news guys that were cranking those old cameras. You know, they were right there, and they'd come and go. As a matter of fact, they'd roll new ones in you know, the ones that would be there at one blast, we were there at every blast, but we'd watch them come and go. And we could always tell when they had new people there. And we always watched in anticipation when the bomb went off, particularly one that was dropped from the airplane. We watched the airplane come in and the bomb drop out. And at the last second so we'd have to turn or you'd be blinded, you know. Why, these people over here with their cameras, somebody should have told them about the shockwave, you know, and they didn't. So when the bomb went off, that air is evacuated very quickly out, and it would knock them down and knock them and their equipment on their ass. You know, so my friend Bob and I, we just thought that was the funniest thing in the world. Because then they'd get back up again, they'd get all set, and of course the air has to come back in again, right? Down they'd go again, so we laughed some more.
Now, the news people that you saw, were they primarily radio, television?
They had
military?
No, they were not military. They were civilian people. They had their old-fashioned big reel cameras that, you know, if now they'd have one probably this big. That equipment they were packing was large pieces of equipment. And they'd film them, as you see on the newsreel still today. That's where it came from, was from these folks.
So, how did they prepare you to see your first atomic test?
Well, we were all indoctrinated. We all had to go through indoctrination. We all were schooled, basically. We were made aware of the radiation. The radiation that is short-lived and the radiation that is long-lived. The effects that it has on the body if you get it. And they explained that if you were in a position where you got the bad radiation, you would die. Eventually it would kill you then, or it's going to get you eventually. If it got into your clothes, it only lived so long. And I can't forget the various terminology they use in describing the different types. We were schooled, okay. I had no fear. You got to understand, I'm a young Butte kid. I'm only young. Radiation, I wasn't scared. I couldn't see no radiation. I wasn't afraid of anything, you know. I enjoyed every one of those blasts. I looked forward to them because you have to see that bomb blow up yourself with your own eyes. Because there's nothing in the world like it. To see that mushroom cloud develop and the whole desert floor just start to rise up and go up into that funnel, and then it goes up and turns. And you've seen it all on the movies, and it goes and it goes and it goes. So, there I am. I talk too much, I guess.
No. Did you have a film badge or anything that your
radiation
level?
We were in charge of the decontamination unit, Bob and I, and we had it all set up with showers, portable. We had clothes, and all of those tests, those trucks went right on by us and headed out. Nobody stopped them, so we could check anything. So I always wondered what all that was about, you know.
So when they came back,
No.
at all?
No.
Did
Nobody.
you have anybody that stopped?
Well, if the one truck stopped, they'd all stop, and they didn't want to do that. They'd had enough for their day, I guess, and they were heading for camp, heading for the beer hall.
So they really, because I've read different things about the film badges, that some had them, some didn't, that it wasn't really until...
They never, I'll say this, and I don't want to get, but I don't really thoroughly think that the people in charge of those tests were as capable as they could have been in the proficiency they could have exercised at the time. I don't. I mean, the bomb is up in the air now, and it's still going up, and these people are getting loaded up, and they're coming right on by us. We're just saying howdy doody, you know. We don't know if they got radiation or
Those
not.
people that were in charge, were they new, they didn't understand all of this, or
Well,
well briefed or trained?
well, that's, they could, the people in charge participate. We had our job. We knew what we were going to do. We set up. We waited for the news people to set up. We were told how much time it would be. If it was the tower, the bomb going to be set off in a tower. You could see the tower. It was right there. It was already built. Of course, the tower didn't exist after the bomb went off. On one occasion, the bomb was supposed to go off, and it didn't go off. It did not detonate. And that was a little scary, because now, after some time, they sent one lone car down there with the guy to disarm the bomb. You can imagine how he must have
Do you
felt.
know who that was?
I don't remember.
That was Mr. Greer.
Now?
You know, EG&G, one of the G's in EG&G, it was Mr. Greer, and he flipped his vice president. He and his vice president were in the control room. They flipped a coin
To see who would do it.
to see who would go up, because the elevator goes down before the bomb
Yeah.
goes off, and so you had to physically climb.
He
the tower.
climbed up this tower. I watched that. I mean, you couldn't, my eyes were better then. You could see the tower. I can always remember that car going down all by itself and heading over to that tower. And I thought, oh my God, this thing can go off at any time. They didn't know.
No.
It's an experiment, see. So I remember that quite vividly. Yeah, we were all glad when he finally came back down and the car hit it back up, because he had pulled the plug.
Mm-hmm.
When I talked to him, met him, he said, I said, gotta be awful tough to climb that tower and not knowing what's up there. And he says, well, the way I looked at it, if it had gone off, I wouldn't even have known it.
He wouldn't have. He'd have been incinerated instantly, yes.
Yeah.
So the largest shot you saw was a 22 kiloton, is what I'm looking here.
Okay.
So that was, you know, that was pretty big. The first ones were 1 kiloton, 8 kilotons. They were smaller, but it would have been shot number 5.
It seemed like some were more violent than others. Yeah.
Do you remember planes flying into the cloud, or?
The plane that made the drop, I remember that quite, because we used to watch it, Bob and I. You could see the plane always came from the west. It didn't come from the east. Here looking south, it came to my right, and we could see this plane come in. And as soon as you could see this thing drop. I don't know how large that bomb was at that time, but we could actually see something dropping. That plane made a right turn, and it got the hell out of there as fast as it could get out of there.
Do you remember ever seeing anybody parachute in, or?
No, I never seen any paratroopers come down at all, no.
Okay. How about the Marines? Do you remember that the Marines were closer?
The
in
Marines, I
trenches?
remember quite vividly, because they had them billeted or bivouacked close by where we were stationed. And for some reason, the Marines they sent up for this one participation were rowdy. They were having trouble with these kids, whatever. But they were out in the desert most nights, in the middle of the night, being disciplined up and down. It would keep us from sleeping, and we're trying to get our rest. And these Marines are out halt, running up and down 1, 2, 3 Corps. We are the Marine Corps because someone screwed up. And when someone screws up in the Marine Corps, everybody gets punished, you see. So let's just say goddamn Marines.
Do you remember seeing the guys come out of the trenches and have brooms where they were brushing the debris and stuff from the shock wave?
Not that far away, a mile. I couldn't do that.
I
No.
wondered if you could see that.
I'm No, I'm just sitting here enjoying this.
Yeah. Do you remember any animals that were tested while you were there?
No, I do. I was never physically at the site they built, the little buildings. You know, they put a town up down there. But I watched the trees going by in trucks, still rooted, as they put in the ground.
Okay, yeah.
I watched all that being sent out there, and we watched all the video after, where the bomb had blown everything to pieces, and the mannequins that were set up in there, you know, in their little houses,
Yes.
they all got blown to hell, you know.
Do
So
you remember the pigs in the uniforms?
I don't remember any pigs in uniforms.
Because they did
no.
have a bunch of pigs
Yeah.
that they dressed in
Yeah,
uniforms, but then they fed them so much they
Yeah,
outgrew the uniforms, so we had to give them new uniforms before they
no.
put them out for the test.
But it was an experiment. We all realized that it was an experiment. I was well aware that what was going on, that when that bomb was dropped, that they were using people like me to see just how effective we could be in an atomic situation. That's the feeling I got out of it.
Yeah. What about entertainment? Did they have entertainment at Camp Desert Rock? Of course, you kept sneaking off to come into Vegas, so you may have missed that.
We didn't get to Vegas that often unless we borrowed a Jeep, and that didn't happen too much after that motor pool officer incident. He had put guards. He would put guards out around his Jeeps after that.
So you didn't get into town, huh?
Well, not that way. No, we managed to get to town, but we didn't borrow any more Jeeps. So.
A lot of equipment that was put out, military equipment out, to see what effect the bomb would have on the equipment. Were you able to see any of the equipment that was out there?
I did. I actually did. We got down into an area where they had a surface blast, and they had some big Army vehicles of that time with the 4 wheels on each side on the back, and they're big, heavy tires. And they were pushed right down into the desert floor, right to the frame. They were pushed right straight down. They weren't blown this way, they weren't blown that way. That pressure came right down on top of them. And
School buses, did you see those, and the trains and everything?
well, I never witnessed that. We witnessed that village that they'd built and maybe rebuilt a number of different times, but
I think you may have come down a little.
Oh.
Yeah, I think your mic may.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
How do I do that now?
Just click on.
Here. I'm sorry. I didn't
Okay.
know. No, I don't remember. They did pretty much restricted from going down in there because that radiation was pretty severe.
About how many days did they restrict people away from those areas?
Well, between blasts, because they went back and forth every time they had a blast, they run people in and out of there. Yeah. But I was told afterwards the indoctrination we would get was that the individuals, the soldiers that were in the trenches and actually came out and marched underneath the bomb as it was going up, they were very happy with all that because they didn't know the troops could do that so quickly. So they learned a lot. The military did.
So you saw 8 blasts, 8
Yes.
atomic bombs go off.
Yes.
Which is more than most people have ever seen.
Yes.
What would you like to say about that? What did you think about that? What kind of feeling does that give you?
Well, the initial feeling was that I knew there was a God, because only God could produce an atomic bomb in such a it was, to me, it was a magnificent sight to see because of the magnitude of that blast. The blast was immense. And the burst itself, once the bomb went off, we were faced away from it. And once that heat and that light first, intense light, and then the heat on the back of your neck was just like standing in front of a furnace, you know. Once that heat passed you, we knew then that we could turn, you know, because the initial light had already went out. And you could see that ball starting to form. The atomic bomb was all right here, but it was starting to form. And as it formed, it grew into such magnitude, and mushroom cloud, the cloud was like whipped cream, colored whipped cream. It was thick. The way it was leaping. Yeah, in other words, it was like being on the seashore and seeing the froth on the waves. How it was just, and magnitude was just absolutely immense, you know. And to watch that form, and then, of course, as the heat is so intense from an atomic bomb, it starts to rise, and it's drawing everything up to it. Like I said, the desert floor would literally come up like this, the dirt, and it would all come inward because that's where the fire sat. And as it came in, then it went up and back out. We watched that mushroom cloud form. 8 times I watched that cloud start to form. And then as it twisted and turned, it went straight up, 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 up until it kind of dissipated. But it went quite a ways up.
How long did you watch the cloud?
I watched it until it was gone. I mean, I was mesmerized by it. I mean, you'd have to be, yeah. Maybe that's why I'm wearing glasses now. I don't know.
So what, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes?
No. No. The bomb from the initial blast until that cloud was way far up, probably 3 minutes, I would say.
And how about the shock wave when it started to come?
Well, you don't see it coming, of course. We knew it was going to come. We were prepared for it. The news people weren't. We were. And that just hit you, and then almost by the time you turn around, it would drive you backwards, say, the other way. That was like seconds. So I don't know what else I can tell you about my little experience down there.
Do you have any stories you want to tell besides the Jeep stealing, the beer drinking?
Oh God, let's see, what can I tell you? Oh my, oh my, oh my. Let's see. Probably stories you really don't want to know about. We've done a lot of things that we shouldn't have done, you know, got away with, and that wouldn't probably be good for the Army to have talked about.
Did you see the cannon, the atomic cannon?
I did not.
Okay. I just
No.
wondered, you know, how far into the civil defense test? You saw the houses, you
No, I was,
saw the forest.
one little story that probably shouldn't be put out for publication is that we had a sergeant down there, First World War Master Sergeant, Second World War. It was quite belligerent, and he did not like me because I didn't take no guff from anybody. He didn't like me, I know that. But we were in the beer hall drinking one night, and he come in, he'd been drinking himself all day. And he shouldn't have, but he had 2 Army issue 45s, one on each side. He was like Patton, say. Pulled them out, cocked them, and put them right here.
Oh my God.
Right here. You know, I thought, well, that's the end of my life. And I told him, I said, you son of a bitch, you either pull the trigger or put them goddamn guns away. I could have had him run out of the Army, but we let it go, you know. But that was a close call, you know.
So how long did you stay in the service?
Oh, just long enough for them to get rid of me or get me out. I loved the Army. I thought the Army was great. I liked it better than the Navy.
And then where did you go?
Well, then, of course, my wife and I, we moved directly to Seattle. I spent 1 year at Seattle University. They got me into an area way beyond my control. They put me into all mathematics, and I wasn't prepared for it. So after struggling for my first year in Sale University, I went to trade school and learned to be a sheet metal person, sheet metal man. I went 3 years to trade school and turned out as a journeyman in 1958, and absolutely loved my trade, worked it all my life, and I was very, very good at it. So there.
Anything else you want to ask?
Well, I can't think of anything.
Well, we really appreciate you coming.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I didn't know this place existed, but I'm so glad to meet both of you. And
We hear that a lot, that, people don't know we exist, but thank
No.
you so much for this.